Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffitts. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffitts, and today we are joined by accomplished entrepreneur, author, and philanthropist, Rand Selig. Now, Rand holds an MBA from Stanford University, and he has a strong background in finance, and he started his career on Wall Street at Lehman Brothers. He has worked with several major financial institutions, including Bankers Trust Company and Bear Stearns, and was one of the original architects of the currency swap market. In 1987, he founded the Selig Capital Group, providing investment banking services to entrepreneurial and environmental clients, and he has completed over 200 corporate finance transactions with a cumulative value exceeding $10 billion. I had to take a breath when I was reading that. Rand is also the author of Thriving: How to Create a Healthier, Happier, and More Prosperous Life. And that book focuses on personal growth and development. But beyond his professional achievements, he is deeply involved in philanthropy and environmental stewardship. And today he joins us to share his insights on business, life, and personal fulfillment. And by the way, that book is on my desk, and we're going to share a good bit from it. Good morning, Rand, and thank you for sending me your book. How are you doing today?
Just great, Denise. I got to say, it's an absolute pleasure to be with somebody who's such a great host and who is talented and humorous. And I'm not just buttering you up. That's really the truth.
Oh, thank you. Okay, we're done now. You did everything I told you to do. We're good. So, but listen, I do have that book in front of me, and I've read it, I've reviewed it, and I do need to take another picture of the cover, because as you noted a little bit ago, that it looks kind of gray. And I didn't realize that when I put it up on my blog, because it's a beautiful blue color. So I'm going to retake that picture. But it's a terrific book. So I guess my question for you, Rand, is how did you go from the work that you did to writing this type of a book?
Well, in some
And
ways,
tell us about the book, before I
yeah,
get
yeah,
or
yeah.
get in front of myself.
Well, uh, the the book really is kind of my walk through life, my experiences as a scoutmaster and little league coach, certainly dealing with clients, relationships of all kinds, family as well as personal ones, and one of my degrees is in psychology, so I've been kind of an observer for probably my entire life, maybe since high school. And so I knew I had been collecting information, articles from books, quotes. My book has lots and lots of quotes in it, and even my own little notes that I jot down about some idea I had. And I had a 4-foot high stack of papers in my office. And I kept on looking at them over the years and saying, there's several books in that stack, and there's several books in me. And starting 5 years ago, I said, now's the time. Now's the time to sit down and start writing this. And the good news is that I decided to send the manuscript to 3 friends who knew me well and who several of them had also written their own books. And I said, please take a look at this book. Give me your thoughts about it. I'm planning to give this as a kind of a legacy project to family and dear friends like you. And tell me what's missing. Be nice, but be constructive here. And all 3 of them came back and said, no. So I said, oh, throw this project away. That's terrible. And they said, no, it is so important. It is so big. You have to publish it. You have to get this book out in as many hands as possible. So that was terrific. They also had some really great comments, which I listened to hard and incorporated in my book. My book, to answer your other question, my book is in 4 sections. The first section is about thriving personally. And that's actually half the book, because that is so foundational. Nothing can support thriving if you're not thriving personally. Section 2 goes into thriving with others. Section 1 talks about the most important relationship you'll ever have in your life is the one with yourself. Well, once you have that underway and you're grateful and you're handling money and your emotions and you have gratitude and you have purpose and meaning in your life, you're managing yourself well, then you go on to having relationship with others. Section 2. Section 3 is thriving out in the world. And that includes being of service, being charitable and philanthropic, and taking care of Mother Earth. And then section 4 is thriving as we move ever forward in life. And that's gaining wisdom and evolving, becoming a better person. And the book ends with a proviso that all of these possibilities of getting on the path to thriving is possible, but only if we're willing to do the hard work and hold the reins. We have to be the ones driving our own bus, as I like to call it. We have to be the ones deciding how fast to go, when to stop, when to turn right or left, who to invite on the bus, which is a very, very important thing, and can be very difficult, but sometimes we have to invite people off our bus too.
And that can be family as well,
Yes.
which
Yes.
is probably one of the most difficult things you're going to do. But I will tell you, this has always been my opinion. It doesn't matter if you're blood related, if you cannot get along or you do not like each other, let it go.
Yeah. Well, I hear people talking about that. I am encouraging about becoming emotionally healthy and making that kind of tough decision. But I also think there might be a way, and I haven't really investigated this very much, but there may be a way of having a relationship that is on your terms and is a very casual one. Maybe you send a note. It's not an email, because that way you don't have to get a reply back that might not be the kind of reply you want. But you can send a note in the mail saying, just thinking of you, hope you're doing well, hope you have some nice holidays, or something. So it's not a complete zero, but it's redefining the relationship so that it's on your terms.
Well,
I don't.
that does make sense, but there are going to be people, that's a but, sorry.
Mm,
There are going to be people that you come across, whether they're related or not, that you just have no interest in, no tolerance in. You're not going to put up with their BS anymore. And
true.
those are the people that you just have to say, look, it's been nice, but you go now. Go, go.
Well, that's you're exactly right, and I'm glad you came back to that point. And it's also the case, and I've been observing this for a while too, that some people just drift away. It was a fine relationship. Everything was good. You did some good things together. You had some nice conversations, but over some period of time, you've evolved. They've changed, and there's just not that much juice anymore. And not that you're fighting or having a problem, but just they've drifted away, and that's okay too. It just invites you to say, well, I'm gonna meet some new people. I'm going to have some new friends.
Exactly. And while you were saying that, I had just written down the word evolving and you said it. So we're on the same page. What are some of the key principles or strategies that you outline in Thriving to help people kind of move forward and achieve a more fulfilling life?
Well, it all starts, Denise, with knowing yourself. And that's a deep dive. And it's not ever something you finish, because you continue to change. So you got to revisit that from time to time. But you got to know, of course, things like your strengths and weaknesses and preferences. You got to know whether you're introverted or extroverted. You have to know when you feel in a pickle and it's just you're very uncomfortable. So you don't want to put yourself in those situations unless you're really well prepared. So getting to know yourself, and continuing to investigate that over time is it starts with that. It goes on from there to becoming a person of character. Having integrity. What you say you do. People can trust you. These kinds of things are very important. Being grateful. People say, "Well, how can I be grateful when I just got the news that I have cancer or something else?" And I say, I'm sorry to hear that, and I hope that you have, a good medical team on your side. I hope you can take care of yourself, and I hope you can be grateful, because think of things that could be worse. And at that time, of course, they're thinking, well, nothing could be worse. But, think about not having the doctors. Thinking about not having the ability to get to the doctor, or the ability to pay for the doctor. Think about the other people in your life who are supporting you, who are caring about you, who are saying, "Hey, I'm happy to take you to that doctor's appointment," or something like that. So, when you're, especially at any time, it's good to be grateful, but it's especially important to be grateful when the chips are down.
Very much so. I had a guest years ago. I don't even know how long. This thing is 17 years old. This podcast is old enough to drive or have a debutante ball. I haven't decided which. But I had this all my guests are fascinating, but this was particularly fascinating because it's exactly what you just mentioned. He was diagnosed with a particular nasty form of cancer, and he was basically told to go home and, you know, get his affairs in order. And he decided somehow that he was going, I mean, he did the medical things, the ones that he agreed with, and he had surgery, I believe, but he also embarked on what he called massive gratitude.
Mm,
And when I spoke with him, he was 5 years down the road.
yeah.
But he insisted, and I believed him, that because of the gratitude that he took with every breath he took, it helped him. And, I have to tell you, Rand, I didn't know much about gratitude at that point. I mean, I knew I was thankful for the water I drank, for the pecan trees in my backyard, for my pets, the people who loved me, but it was just kind of, I took it for granted. And after listening to him, I said, okay, Denise, you need to, get a lot better with this gratitude thing. It did change my life. It did.
I'm delighted to hear that for you and for anybody else listening. This is a huge ingredient. It's a choice. It's a choice. I think,
Exactly. And that's what I didn't understand. It was a choice. I had to pay attention to it.
yeah. I think the central theme of my book is that it is possible to get on the path of thriving by making choices, about how we spend our time, who we spend our time with, what our habits are, and our feelings. And being positive, being grateful, are two hugely, hugely important things. Having purpose is another really important thing. And I've spoken to high school groups all the way through retirement homes. And I say that you have to have purpose. And people at retirement homes say, well, why? uh, we're here, we're comfortable, somebody's paying for us to be here, or we are able to pay for ourselves. Why have purpose? I said, because it gives you a reason to get up in the morning. Even if your purpose is to be kind and welcome some new resident, to have a smile on your face and express an interest in them, to be interested in hearing their story, that's purpose, and that's a mighty one.
Sorry, I was thumbing through the book. I'm actually, I was listening, but I was looking for my sticky notes because I will never mark a book down. My, childhood librarian would rear up and get me. Um, I was on, and I just lost it. You have values, virtues, values, and principles. That's on page 24. And you've got a quote by Zig Ziglar, who is one of my favorite people. But when you're talking about virtues and values, humility, generosity, restraint, kindness, moderation, charity, and diligence. For those of you who are listening, and when you get this book, we're on page 24. But
Well,
then you've got others. You've got, now go slowly through each of these, pause and reflect before going on the next one. You're giving us homework, which I kind of love.
yeah, in some ways, I wrote this book as a little bit of a workbook. So every 3 pages or so, when I finish a point, I ask a question, and I say at the very beginning of the book, these are not meant to be rhetorical. The more you take time and think about them and write them down, I'm a big person who believes writing things down makes them real, and you can return to them. The more they're likely to come into your life and fill your life with important things. So it's a workbook. I'm hoping this year actually to do some workshops. I think that'd be a lot of fun, and people would get a lot of benefit because going through this book, there's a lot to it. A lot of people, a huge number of 5-star reviews. People love this book, but it's you have to be diligent to get all the way through it. So I think a workshop would be a nice offering. I'm hoping to do that.
Oh, I hope you do. And when you do, let me know, and I'll make sure our audience knows about it.
Thank you, Denise. Appreciate that.
My pleasure. I wanted to ask you, Rand, you talk a lot about success, and you talk about success your way and how to determine how much is enough. I think that's a big question for a lot of people. How much is enough and how much is not enough?
hmm hmm Yeah, it is. It is one of the most important things I think I've come across in the business world. In the personal world, it's a conversation, but it doesn't rise quite in the same way. And I think it boils down to, again, you deciding, are you going to be looking externally? Are you going to be looking at the neighbor who's driving down the street with the shiny new car, or a friend who's just come back from a terrific trip somewhere, and of course it was very expensive, or a coworker who is talking about something, remodeling their house and spending a fortune for a new kitchen or something. And you can look at that, and if you do, hopefully you're saying to yourself, well, good on them, I hope they enjoy it. That's not for me. Or I like my car. It's a 6-year-old car, and it's comfortable, and I like it, and it's running well. I don't need a new car. Or that trip, yeah, maybe, but I'm also really happy to do a closer to home trip that's a lot less expensive. So, defining success, I mean, in my career as an investment banker and doing huge number of transactions for companies of all sizes, but in the last 3 decades, mostly privately held companies that are, somewhere in the 5 million to 30 million category. The biggest issue that folks come across is, that I've helped them to become even wealthier, and I'm happy to have done that. But when people say, have they been successful people? I have to say a lot of them were not successful, even though they had a big bank account, a big investment account. Why? Because look at them. Look at all around them are failed relationships, personally as well as professionally. They had to get rid of a partner. They've divorced. Their kids are not talking to them anymore, whatever it is. And look at what they've done to their bodies. They've worked so hard that they didn't, take care of themselves. They were out of stress over overeating or whatever, and they're not emotionally healthy either. The slightest drop of the hat, they'll explode. So these are things that really woke me up to thinking about what is success. Success is an internal measure, it's not an external measure. And you say to yourself, what does it take for me to be successful? Then you can decide. And it's not the messages we're hearing in our media and other places. It's an internal thing, and it's not balance either. It's not balance sounds to me every time I hear it like a teeter-totter. You know, you're doing work or you're doing you, you know, and back and forth, back and forth. And it's like a zero sum kind of proposition that way. Instead, I think what success is in it is integration, an integration of the factors that really matter to you in life. And that is, yes, your physical health, yes, your emotional health. Financial things play in, there's absolutely no doubt about it. Your spiritual health, that's important to have gratitude and humility and be in awe of these things that are so much bigger and things that we don't really even understand. Um, to give to other people, to be of service. All of these components are, to me, about integrating, and that leads to success. And frankly, it leads to happiness.
Absolutely. And I was writing down when you said teeter-totter, I wrote down work-life balance because in my opinion, that's a crock of crud. You
Mhm.
can't separate them in my view. You are who you are.
Well, I think you're right. And I think the people who try to separate just make the problem in some ways worse. You know, when you're in one side of the teeter-totter or the other, you're almost looking over at the other side saying, I wish I were over there right now. And so the integration is, people say, how do you have so much energy? How did you avoid the burnout, you know, with your incredible career? How did you do that? And I said, because I took care of myself along the way. And because when I set up my own company, I set it up based on some key principles. I wanted to have relationships with clients. I wanted to work with clients that I thought were doing good work in the world. It's my judgment, but that's okay. I'm willing to sort of live and die by the sword. Um, you know, I felt good about getting on with the whole proposition that I could create a life for myself that led me to not have a huge commute. You know, people said, "How could you set up your company in your little town rather than being, you know, in the financial district in San Francisco?" And I said, "Well, if a client is interested in where I'm located rather than the kind of work I'm able to do and the quality of work and the kind of communication we're going to be having, then I don't think I want them as a client anyway." So I was able to craft by designing my own life. This is another huge ingredient that I talk about whenever I have a chance, like right now. We can be the designers of our own life by making thoughtful choices, being on top of these issues. And we can be the author of our own story. And now that I am an author, I can talk about this with a smile on my face. We can decide what to edit. We can decide what to delete in our own stories, and we can craft future stories, future scenarios about what our life can be. That's the power we have to be the author of our own story.
Absolutely. And I'll hear people say, and I think I've probably been guilty of this myself. Oh, yeah, it started in my childhood. You get a little whiny. I learned this when I was a kid. Rewrite the story.
Hmm.
Just
Hmm.
get over it, rewrite the story. I have to tell you though, when you were talking, you'd mentioned new car. I read somewhere recently and it tickled me because it's so true. And I don't know who said it, but he said basically, don't drive your assets. And I went, yep, there you go. Drive that 6-year-old car. I'm one of those people. I'll get the best car I can get and drive it literally into the ground, which I think I've done with my Range Rover. I think she's finally just said, okay, Denise, enough. But am I going to buy another one? No, they're too expensive and I don't drive much anymore. I'm created my life where I'm in my own home, my office is here, my groceries are delivered. I really don't need to drive that much. So my next car will be a little bit more rational, but you have to make those decisions as you go. You can't just kind of do them on a whim, which is what you're talking about.
Well, there are two quotes that I want to share with your listeners right now because it's just really so on point here. One is by the great Will Rogers, and he said, "Too many people spend money they haven't earned to buy things they don't want to impress people they don't like." So I think that says a lot. And then there's another one that begins the chapter on money. Yet to have more is not to be more. Abraham Joshua Heschel. So these two quotes from my book, to me, say a huge amount about this money thing. Who are you, and what are you doing? Why is money playing an outsized role? Or can you get on top of that and make choices that really work for you and live within your budget and be happy with where you are? I think actually one of the outcomes of the pandemic is that people are doing a little bit better job with that. They're saying, I don't have to go into the office as much, although I guess some companies are returning to that more. But I can live in a place that's a lot more affordable. It's far away from the big city, so I'm in nature, which is really a huge element in life. I'm making some choices that are right-sized for me, and are choices I want to make and make me happy and healthy.
And listen, I agree with you. Nature is very important to me. I was noting your book when we were on video a little bit when we were on video, that your windows, and you showed me all the wonderful nature outside of your windows. I have large windows too. And I will walk from my office, which is at the front of the house, back through the middle of the house, which is basically open floor, but I've got banks of windows, floor to ceiling. And I will catch myself just stopping in my tracks and going, oh, it's so beautiful. And then I grab the dog and we go out there. It's it's living to me as just having my big trees and the greenery. Yeah, I live in the deep south. It doesn't ever, well, I was going to lie and say nothing ever dies down here, but we had the snow calypse a month or so ago, and everything out there is pretty well brown and needs to be either replanted or heavily trimmed. But for the most part, it's green here. It's so green, it's actually annoying every once in a while. It's like, I want winter. Then I got winter and went, oh, geez, never mind. But nature is important. Get out, walk your dog, do something.
Well, I think there's a component to being out in nature, which is the real win, and that is to slow things down. Now, if you're in a car and you're driving through a beautiful place, but you're distracted and you're driving maybe too fast because you're trying to get someplace and it's important for you to be at that place. You may not be seeing very much as you look out, or as you're walking, you may be thinking about something else. But if you slow things down, you stop, you see, oh my gosh, look at that little bug. And you just look at it for a few minutes, see it crawling along. You see how it's shaped, and the colors, and is it camouflaged or is it sticking out so that it can find a mate, or be something that it's sort of saying, hey, don't eat me, I won't be tasting good. Just slow down, smile, see the seasons. Pick something up, and like a leaf in the fall, and crunch it and feel that, hear that sound. These kinds of things, slowing things down, is so good. So it's being in nature, but being.
And I understand that. I'm one of those people. I'm an A-type personality. I want things done now. I want it done my way, which never works, by the way. I had to learn a long time ago when I assembled my team for my web development company that I could not make them do how I wanted it done. I had to give them autonomy. Most of them know more about any particular thing that I'm asking them to do than I do anyway. But I had to have a talk with myself and them and then apologize, say, look, I'm really sorry. You do you, I'll do me. And when we have, if you have questions, let me know. And that worked. But I wasn't slowing down. I was just going, going, going. And I came very close to burning out some years ago. And that scared me. I mean, it really scared me. And that's when I started paying more attention to gratitude and nature. And I mean, I live in nature. I live in Southwest Louisiana. We're about 40 miles from the Gulf of America as a crow flies, but it's sadly the sugarcane fields and the cornfields are being mowed down and houses are going up, which I don't like, but it's still not that bad. But nature is important. Just getting out, sitting under a tree, watching the ants crawl up the tree, whatever you want to do. When I'm walking the dog, I've noticed though that I will fall into something of a walking meditation. And that's helpful to me because my creativity says, hey, Denise, you got a little quiet there. Let's talk. And then all of a sudden I'm getting downloads, if that makes any sense.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. I
Are you
mean,
still there?
yes, yes. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Rand, did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Shoot.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I have no idea what's happening here.
Yeah, I can
Uh,
hear you, Denise. I can hear you.
I
But
will send you a note in the chat and see if you can hear me.
I can hear you. Yeah.
I hope we don't have to redo this, but we can and we will. So,
Let's see.
Rand, check the chat.
Okay, I'm checking the chat. And
Darn it.
yes, yes, I can hear you.
Darn, darn, darn.
Yeah. I'm not hearing anything, Denise.
Okay, how about now?
Yes.
Dang it. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
What the heck? All right, well, hopefully I can cut all this part out. I,
Okay.
I'm going to hope that I can cut all this part out. Um, I have no idea what happened there. All right, where were we? So, so I can get rid of this.
I can hear you. So should we keep going?
Yeah, pick
Oh,
up where we left off. Give me
okay.
30 seconds so I'll know where to cut this out again.
Okay.
And then just, do a quick count, 30 seconds, and then you start talking and I'll catch up. I
Okay.
don't know what the heck. Okay, sorry. And I'm glad I didn't say any bad words because I've been auto correcting myself. Instead of saying anything with an F in it, I'll say, oh, duck it. Just duck.
Duck.
Duck, duck, damn it. So,
Duck, duck, quack, quack. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So
Sure.
go ahead and, give me 30 seconds
Okay.
and then let's try it again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think one of the elements that would be good for us to explore with your listeners, Denise, is the three things I like to talk about concerning being emotionally healthy, and those are stop self-sabotaging. A second one is forgiving yourself and others. And the third one is letting go. And
And honestly, none of those are easy. They require real work.
it's very much the case. And I can be, I guess, a little cavalier because I've never, that I can ever recall, self sabotage, but I see other people doing it. And when I was in college, one of my degrees was in mathematics, and I was a tutor. And students would come in for tutoring, and within really 60 seconds, they would say, I'm not good at math. So I'd say, well, let's work on some problems together. And we do that. And eventually I'd get them to try a problem on their own. And when they got that solved, they say, wow, math is cool. Math is fun. So in a fairly short period of time, I was able to move them from a place of complete self-sabotaging into a place of possibility and actually excitement about it. So I just say, pay attention to yourself. See when you're saying, I can't, or I'm not good at this, and just say, how much of that is a story that needs to be thrown away? So that's self sabotaging. On the forgiving thing, You got to forgive other people. I've met people who are, getting closer to the end. They've carried around something for decades, and it's a heavy, heavy thing in their backpack. It makes getting on the path to thriving really hard, maybe almost impossible. They need to take a look at that situation. They need to be honest. They have to say to themselves, hey, I participated in this. I didn't play a big role. And you need to say to yourself, and maybe writing it down is helpful. Here's what happened. Here's how I felt because this thing happened. I felt I deserved an apology I never got, but I'm going to forgive you, the person you're thinking about or writing something to. You can do this even if the person's out of your life or off the planet. And then, of course, you wouldn't send a letter. There's nobody to send it to anymore. But anyway, you can get on with that and forgive them. And the same applies to yourself. I mean, I've yet to meet anybody who hasn't made a mistake they feel bad about. They could have been a better person at a certain time. You need to forgive yourself. Be honest. Be honest. What did you do? And then forgive yourself and move on. So that's a quick forgiveness. And then the last one is letting go. And of the three, this was absolutely the hardest one for me because so much of my life I thought was because I was in control. I was running my own company, I was managing my family, and all these things. I was doing great jobs. So I was in control. But the truth of the matter is that my adult children, who are both fabulous, and my wife helped me understand is I wasn't really controlling all that much. What I was controlling, what I continue to control, are four things. I control my attitude. I control the amount of effort I'm willing to put into something. I control my behavior, and I control my actions. After that, it becomes other people. And the most I can do with other people is influence. And if I'm doing a good job, I can influence them more. And if I'm not doing a very good job, my influence shrinks. And of course, then beyond that, there's things that are completely out of control, like the weather or, the big comet coming to, destroy planet Earth. These things are out of our control for the most part, certainly in our personal little lives. So letting go becomes an enormously important thing to release yourself from. And I like to do a little exercise where I say to people, okay, hold up your fist. You're holding on to something you want to let go of. You haven't been able to do that. You're holding on so strongly that you can see your knuckles are a different color than the rest of your hand. Now you're still holding on. You turn your fist over. You see your knuckles again. But then you decide, wait a minute, who's driving the bus? Who's in control? Maybe I read Rand's book. I like to joke. And you say, I'm going to let go now. And you slowly open your fingers, your hand, your fingers are wiggling, your thumb is wiggling, and almost magically your hand rises up towards the sky because you've let go of something very heavy. So that's the let go exercise. I used to have to do it a lot, but then
I'm doing it right now.
Oh, good.
You should have seen my knuckles. It's like, okay, Denise, you
Yeah.
got problems, my girl.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when I first discovered this exercise, I was doing this, I don't know, regularly, maybe every day. And, it helped me. It helped me to realize what was going on and to say, well, who's in charge here? And over the last few years, I think I've become a little more humble, a little more honest. And now I don't have to do it very often. But when I do, I have a smile on my face.
Right. And I have to tell you, when you first said that, make a fist, well, I did. And I was clutching very, very tightly, but I hadn't let anything go. So I
Mm.
had to unclench deliberately,
Yes.
physically unclench. But the second time when I told you I was doing it, I just a very quick thing, it's bothered me for years on and off, not to where, I live with it, but it'll pop back up. It popped up in a dream the other day. And I thought, oh, here we go again. And I woke up kind of ticked off because like I thought I got rid of this. I didn't. But I very quickly, when you were talking, I did the second one and I let it go. And all of a sudden I realized I'm watching my fist and it unclenched all by itself. I didn't have to do a darn thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. That's a great set of comments about this. And I hope people can do this. It'll help them, I think. I think somehow it also makes me think of humor, because humor is such an important element in life. You have to have humor about the situation, the stuff that we do not control. Oh, there they are again, those construction workers working on the road during rush hour. Oh, thank you very much. What are you doing? And then, of course, you see them, and some are working hard, and a few are standing there looking around. What's that about? We don't know. You got to have humor. You got to have some humor about that, and you have to.
That would be unions, union workers.
You,
Okay, keep going.
yeah, you have to have humor about yourself. That's sort of that thing you just said. Oh, here I go again. Ha ha. Right? Catch yourself in these moments where the pattern, and it's not a pattern you like, is repeating. And then you can laugh at yourself, laugh at the situation, have humor about yourself. It's really helpful.
It
Really.
is. It really is. And I was telling you earlier in our virtual green room that every once in a while, I mean, I'm a Southern person. We try not to curse too much, but every once in a while, I'll find myself just ripping out something that starts with an F. So I am autocorrecting. Instead of saying, I'll say duck. Darn it, duck. And it's a completely different thing. And I start laughing at myself. So,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to autocorrect.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where slowing things down helps too, because then you can sort of choose your words a little more carefully. You can get on top of the emotion that was producing that desire to say duck. And it's good to have soft thoughts and hard arguments rather than hard words.
Ooh, I like that. I'm writing that down. Um, you said something about I can't earlier, and I wrote that down. I taught myself a long time ago to never say the word I can't. I
Mm,
replace it with I won't or
yes.
I don't. For instance, I don't swim. Guess why? But I don't frame it that way. You push me in a pool, I'm going to drown. It's going to be your fault. But I don't swim.
Well, these two things you added to I don't and I won't are fabulous, because one is based on principles. So I don't do that because it's against my values, my principles, to be disrespectful of somebody. I don't do that. It's just not, it's not right. That the person may be doing something I don't like, but I don't know their story. I don't know what's going to happen. So it's holding on to my principles and values. Also, I won't do that. I won't work with somebody who I think is dishonest. I won't work with somebody who's producing something, a service or a product that I think is harmful to the environment, or uses child labor, or that kind of stuff. So these are values and principles underlying the I don't and I won't.
Exactly. And I wanted to go back a little bit. I'm still on page, well, I'm not building character, that chapter. And you talk in here about being a lifelong learner.
Mm,
And as far as I can tell, you encourage readers to embrace lifelong learning. So I guess my question is, how can people cultivate that mindset, especially in a world that's constantly evolving and frankly flattening a lot of us? Things are getting uglier by the day, it seems like. But I will say, I also have the attitude, if I can't immediately affect it, I leave it alone. I worry about what I can do something about.
Yeah, being a lifelong learner is a hugely important thing, just for the reasons you said. The world is changing around us, and we ourselves are changing. So to keep on top of that means learning. There's an expression that I think people understand well, which is it's not the strongest or the smartest person who survives; it's the person who adapts. And I think that the truth of that is leads to you saying, "Well, let me take this on. It's not out of my possibility to learn that. I'm not talking about becoming a rocket scientist or a brain surgeon, but there are things I can learn about myself, learn about the world around me. Being curious is a choice. You can stop and say, "Hey, I don't know what that is. Let me Google it. Let me see what Wikipedia is saying about it. Let me take some time. Let me read a book. Let me have a conversation with somebody who probably knows something about that, or at least between the two of us, we'll explore it a little bit more, and I'll have a better understanding of what some of the issues are." Being curious is one of the things in life that makes life fun. I like to tell people, think about a trip you took or an adventure you had. What made it fun? Well, I think somewhere along the line, it had to do with being curious. You were in a different place. Maybe they were speaking in a different accent. You're talking about coming from the South, or maybe a totally different language. Maybe they were dressed differently. Maybe the food they were eating was different. And that makes things fun. And if you're curious about it, it just adds a whole spice, spice to life. And there's a side benefit to being curious, which is it can really help a lot in conflict resolution. The world we're living in can be filled with conflicts. And instead of saying somebody, maybe a friend, maybe somebody you don't know very well, is saying something, and you saying, "Boy, this is such hogwash. I don't believe this at all." Instead of saying that, crossing your arms or saying something, duck, 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 you can say to yourself, "Oh, tell me more. I'm curious." I actually use that word. How did you come to that place? But say it openly, like you really mean, tell me more. Not like, how did you come up with that stupid idea? Tell me more. No, don't attack them with the question. Invite them with the question openly. And by listening to them, you're not telling your story at that point. You're not rebutting them. You're listening. You're asking more questions. You're really just trying to understand where they're coming from, how they came to that point of view. And it doesn't mean you have to change where you're coming from or how you think about things, but it could do a lot in terms of preserving the relationship, avoiding a big conflict. That's part of being curious. Be that little
Yeah,
fly on the wall.
exactly. And the other side of that is having curiosity about yourself. Yeah, I'll ask myself often,
Mm,
well, where the heck did you figure that out? What's going on? Because I'll know. I'll come up with something out of my brain and oh, that's brilliant. Hang on a second. And I have to go have a chat with myself. And I do this often, honestly, with my subconscious when I'm getting ready to go to sleep. If something has gotten in my way during the day and I don't have an answer for it, it's not logical, it doesn't make sense, or I just can't find the answer. And often I'm the one that I'm questioning, as I should. And I will, look up at my ceiling fan before I'm about to go to sleep because I'm not a big sleeper. It's not in my my wheelhouse really. And I'll look up at the ceiling fan and say my prayers out loud, and I will ask my subconscious out loud, whatever the question of the moment is. Rand, I'm telling you, 318, without fail, I wake up, there's the answer. I turn on the light, I write it down. I may go back to sleep, I may not, I may get up and vacuum, but I've
mm,
got the answer. I trust my intuition
mm.
and I trust a better wisdom than I currently have when I'm awake and moving, if that makes any sense at all.
Well, I love it, and trusting yourself is a big deal. It's a very, very big deal. And trusting yourself is on the way to loving yourself. A lot of people who struggle, again, I've come across and worked with thousands and thousands of people, families. When I was a scoutmaster, little league coach, all my clients and their employees. This trusting yourself, getting to the place of loving yourself. If you love yourself, all of a sudden it becomes a lot easier to, spread that and be kind and respectful and listen and ask questions of others.
And yourself. That was always
Yeah.
the biggest thing with me.
Yeah.
I'm very curious. I'm intensely curious, but I wasn't for the longest kind of time curious about why I was thinking the things that I thought. And
Yeah.
then going back and going, well, that was crud monkey. That was just,
Yeah.
what the heck were you thinking? We should all ask that of ourselves. What the heck were you thinking?
Yeah.
Digest it, discard it, or expand on it and keep on moving.
Yeah, I mean, what are, when you unpack that for each of us, and we say, well, what stories am I believing that
Right,
may not be
right.
true, may
Yeah,
not be
and a
true.
lot of times they're not. And I'll tell you how I know this. I'm going to deviate a little bit from this, but I lost my brother about 4 years ago. He was a double lung transplant, but he lived an extra 8 years, but the last year was just awful for him. And he made the decision, and we all knew about it. He discussed it with family that he was going to, at some point, just bow out. He wasn't going to commit suicide, but he was not going to continue things that were not helpful to him. And he decided not to do, you know, he had to have dialysis. And he called me one day and said, I'm not going tonight. And I said, okay. And I knew what he was talking about. And we had an absolutely amazing conversation because I knew in my heart it would be the last time I could really speak with him. He was going to go quickly. We all knew that. And during this conversation, and I said, can I record this? Because it was important to me to hear his voice again and, talk
Mm,
about the thing, forgiveness. Or I'm sorry, I didn't mean to shove you into the
mm,
shower and douse you with Jello. We were mean to him. But I found out during that conversation that so many memories that were just solid for me,
mm.
he didn't see them the same way at all.
Uh-huh.
And I
Uh-huh.
went, huh.
Yeah.
So what I saw, do I need to revisit it, or is that just my memories? But it was interesting to find that two people can look at the same exact thing and not see the same things at all.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is. It is.
In my book, in the early section, in this getting to know yourself business and building character, I talk about adverse childhood experiences. These are things that happen to you before you're age 18. And there's a quick test you can take. It's really 10 questions you ask. Things like, did you ever go to bed hungry? Was one of your parents missing? Was there abuse of whatever type in your life? And you say yes or no to those. And what's interesting about this ACE thing, there's a lot of research been done, is that if you score a 4 or more, you're you have something like an 85% likelihood of having lifelong mental or physical problems. So I took the test, of course. I scored a 3. I'm pretty sure my sister would have scored similarly, but I don't know. And what's interesting also about this test is that what they've discovered is that when you have ACE scores, you either become an orchid or a dandelion. A dandelion can pop up in the crack in the sidewalk with no rain, and it'll be a flowering, happy dandelion. Or with a slight puff of wind, you might become an orchid. So I think about this, and I have a lovely sister. She's a great person, but I'm a dandelion, and I'm pretty sure she's an orchid. And so as I was thinking about this more, I thought, well, maybe her experiences in the same family, the same mom, the same dad, were very different than mine.
And they were.
Hmm.
And this is, and I never even thought about it. I thought, yeah, my childhood was, I don't remember much of it, to be honest. And I was an introvert in a house full of loud mouth siblings. And I mean, they were loud. And I was always hiding and, getting a stack of books and creating forts in the backyard just so they would stop talking to me. And I would tell you can't come in my fort. And I would threaten them. I was like, no. But my childhood was very different from my siblings, apparently. And we've had talks about it. And it's like, well, that's interesting.
Hmm.
For starters, I didn't see what they saw. And if we did see the same thing, it was like, okay, that's not what happened, but okay. It
Yeah.
was what happened to them. What
Hmm.
happened to me was very different. And I had to learn to give that up. It's like,
Hmm.
well, we're different. We have different lenses that we're looking from. Still love you though.
Well, it's a really a great point you're making here, and I think it's really important to recognize, have that perspective that your experience standing right next to somebody else is going to be different. Your eyes are a little bit different, your ears a little bit different, and how you start thinking about it, and you bring forward all the years behind you into that moment, so you might actually not be thinking or feeling the same thing because the person next to you has different experiences in life. So it's really important to have that perspective, and I think it helps to sort of open the possibility of having humility about it. I talk about, it's not the greatest thing to think of yourself as the smartest or most talented person in the room. I've worked with.
Oh, shoot.
Ah,
Really?
yeah, yeah. Sorry, Denise. Sorry to pop the balloon there.
Oh, my heart is broken.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm joking, which is a sad thing.
Well, I've worked with some very, very smart and talented people in my business career, and it doesn't work out well when somebody just showcases, how smart and talented they are. If instead they use their smarts and their talent to engage with the rest of us and work together, then that's the recipe that it feels good and wins. I used to tell my scouts, "Who's the smartest person in the world?" And they would say, Einstein, or maybe Isaac Newton. And I say, "Okay, that those are good choices." And um, who is smarter, Einstein or Einstein plus 10 other people? So the point here is
Ah, I see where you're
collaborate
going. Yeah.
collaborating. When you have something to offer and you're smart and talented, but it's not to showcase it in braggy style, is rather to share that wealth.
And that leads back to what you were saying earlier about influence.
Hmm.
Got
Yes.
it. I understand. Well, oh, I wanted to go back to the page. You're talking, I've got sticky, you ought to see this thing. It's got sticky notes everywhere. Developing habits and routines. I have to admit, that's hard for me. Breaking them, old routines that no longer serve me, and creating new ones. It's like, that's work. So help.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that first section I talk about, I start off with something simple. I call it mundane. It's like the habit of where you put your keys when you come home. And I am, because I have a habit, I put my keys exactly in the same place all the time. So when I need them the next morning or later that day, well, there I go. There it is. No problem. But if at the moment I'm distracted, something else is going on, I get the phone call, my wife's talking to me, and I fail to put the keys in that place, then I have to think, oh, what did I do with them? Where are they? And I'm searching around. I spend like 10 minutes trying to find them. And I'm reaching the pockets. I'm looking all around. A real waste of time. And it's frustrating. And if I let myself uh, go a little crazy, I can be, oh, well, that's because I got that stupid phone call or my wife was interrupting me. And that's a mistake. That's pointing the finger at the wrong person. So creating simple little habits like that are very good. I talk about cleaning my house every Friday afternoon to get ready for the weekend or before going on a trip. Little simple things like that. But other habits are bigger and maybe even more impactful, habits of the mind, habits of the heart. And these are, again, part of the pathway, I think, for this is to be observant. What habits do you have? When do you get off track? I mean, it's make a list of your good habits too, absolutely, and celebrate them for sure. Yes, yes, yes. And the habits that are bad habits or the habits that are missing, make a note of those. Do some inventory work, and then say to yourself, okay, I'm going to try to get in a new habit. It could be a physical thing. It could be like sleeping better, Denise. Or it could,
No. I'm not an insomniac. I just don't like to sleep, and it's not natural to me. If I sleep 4 hours in a row, I'm sick. I probably need to see a doctor.
wow.
But I will sleep 2 hours, maybe three, but I'll sleep 2 hours, then I'm up and running. Then I might go back to sleep, but typically 4, maybe 5 hours a night in fits and snatches. But it works for me. It always has.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. A lot of people do not sleep well, and they pay the consequence for that in irritability and tiredness. Their thinking is a little bit fuzzy. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can really get in the way of of the consequence of not sleeping well.
Right. And I'll tell you, I will always say, and I've said it so many times, I'm a voracious reader, and which reminds me, I need for you to come back. We didn't get nearly as far through this book as I wanted to. Can you come back in maybe June?
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Okay, good.
You're just a great person to chat with. You're listening. You've invested in me and the conversation by reading the book and doing all your post-it notes. So it'd be my pleasure to come back.
Okay, thank you. And I'll get with you after the show and we'll get that set up. But I wanted to say, and I've said this before, sleeping gets in the way of my reading time.
Mm.
That's all there is to it. I will wake up at 3:18 or, whenever, and the first thing I do is grab a book. Or I've been known to make a gumbo, which is a little bizarre, but if I feel like cooking, I go cook. So there it is. Listen, before I reluctantly let you go, is there anything else that you want our audience to know about? And where can they find your book? Where can they find you?
Well, thank you, Denise. Again, it's been a pleasure being with you. What we didn't cover today, which is a lot of territory, hopefully we'll cover in June, and between now and then, hopefully people will grab a copy of my book and enjoy it, and hopefully be encouraged and inspired. That's really why I wrote the book. We've talked about success, defining success. We haven't spent a lot of time about forming deep and enduring relationships. That would be one I think we could return to or go into a little bit deeper. And we haven't really talked very much about managing transitions or aging well. These are other big themes that could be really valuable for us to talk about and share with your listeners.
Perfect. And I actually had notes about both of those things. So I'm glad you're coming back.
Good. Goody.
Well, listen, before I let you go, let me tell people where they can find you. Where can they find the book?
Well, the book is everywhere. Certainly Amazon, but also the independent bookstores. Amazon is nice because there's an author central that has a lot of information right there at the site. Also, lots of reviews and that kind of stuff. So, Amazon would be one easy place to go. You can also go to my book website, randselig.com. Which has more information about the book, information about me. You can download a PDF of 40 of my favorite quotes organized by chapter. People say they print it out, and every day they, depending on their mood or what challenge they're facing, they'll pull out another one and look at it and think about it during the course of the day. You can also connect with me. So I'm encouraging people to invite me to, maybe it's just a living room conversation, or maybe it's a book group, or something larger. This year, I'm hoping to do some not only more great podcasts like this one, but also some keynotes, and also build a workshop out. So that'd be another site. You can go to my LinkedIn page, which I think has some other good information. And lastly, you just Google me. Google Rand Selig. You'll see 60 some podcasts or interviews right there. And what's nice about the Google is there's like a 4 or 5 word description, which says, "Oh, this is a business one." No, then I'll get to that another time. Right? This one is about self-care. Yes, or a particular aspect of self-care, so you can navigate through the many podcasts and interviews and select some that resonate more for you at the moment.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Well, listen, everybody. Today on Your Partner in Success Radio with my guest, Rand Selig, we explored I can't even talk now. We explored key insights from his book, Thriving, which is on my desk, and we've been talking about it quite a bit, and discussed strategies for becoming a lifelong learner, my favorite part of the book, even with a busy schedule. And Rand's approach emphasizes personal empowerment, meaningful relationships, and continuous learning as essential components for achieving a more fulfilling life. And by focusing on these principles, individuals can enhance their well-being and reach their full potential. So if you are ready to start thriving in your own life, take the first step by applying these principles today. Get the book. And whether it's defining your personal success, fostering deeper relationships, or embracing lifelong learning, every small change can lead to significant growth. And connect with him on his website or on LinkedIn. Rand, thank you again so much, and I very much look forward to having you come back soon.
Thank you, Denise. Hope you feel the hug I'm sending your way.
I do. And I think you can hear my cat crying in the background. She's 20 years old and she's mad because I won't go feed her right now. She'll get over it. So thank you, Rand. I will call you in just a bit and we'll get that second episode scheduled.
Terrific. Thanks, Denise.
My pleasure.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffitts at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.